Sis2sis. Hi, I'm so glad that we're back here, this time on the sofa, nice and comfortable. I'm not able to go anywhere much or do much. And we just coming back. This title doesn't really have a title. We've just been sitting here debating loads of stuff. Actually, there's so much that we could head in the direction, but recently I've been watching a lot of YouTube, a lot of my usual males I'm subscribed to, a lot of females as well who've been speaking out on things men have been putting up with. In a previous show I talked about men going it alone, and hearing the male voice in relationships, and how we've kind of got to this position we are in our relationships.
Yes. I think, like yourself, there are a lot of sort of self-help videos. There are a lot of male advisors now who, from the people that I can sort of see on my social platforms, seem to really be getting a lot of help and a lot of advice, where a lot of men wouldn't usually sort of talk to friends or seek out advice and help. I think a lot of these new, don't want to say new age, but a lot of these men who have put themselves on the front line to kind of share information, share their opinions and their perspectives. I think it's a fantastic thing that males are now able to kind of find that information out.
To have a voice, and I don't think it's a matter of females allowing males to have a voice. I think that's very patronizing. I think for a long time us as females have had talk shows, chat shows, series where we've tuned in, we've spoken to our mothers, our grandmothers, our sisters, our friends about relationships, and always had outlets. And I don't think for a moment we thought maybe the men have something to say, and maybe they have something to say about us. And basically, I mean, one of the key things I was watching was Kevin Samuels. I've been watching him now with my partner, with my sister, for a few months. Initially, when I heard his voice and when I heard the way in which he conducts his show, I was a bit horrified. And it wasn't for probably about 6 episodes in when I thought, okay, he isn't accepting calls from men simply because he's addressing women and what women not necessarily want to hear but need to hear
from a male perspective.
I don't know if you guys have ever checked into what Kevin Samuels has to say. He's basically an image consultant. He lives in America. I want to say Atlanta, but that's not 100% sure on that. And he has basically been talking to women about what men require, and not just any men, but alpha males, the men of a certain stature and men of certain value. He actually calls them high value men, and I'm not saying I would ever go out looking for a high value man, but the callers who are calling in want that. They want this, and he's trying to say, basically he's putting a balance on it. If you want something, you have to ask yourself, what is it you bring to the table? And there are the numbers actually point that there are more male top earners than there are females, and eligibility is another key factor. So you know, things like if you have children already from previous relationships, if you I don't know, if you have
yourself on a high earner,
or if you have trauma and stuff that you haven't dealt with, like if you're bringing back that into a relationship, you can't say, I want a man who does this, this and this, and expect that. You might say you want that, but unless you're willing to be like that person that the other person requires, then you're not being that realistic. And I'm not saying that things can't happen, like you can't meet someone, you don't know much about them, and it turns out they're a high earner, they own a property, whatever. But I don't think that you can, there's the majority of people out there that are saying they want that is unrealistic. I think it can happen on a one-away, and there is love, there is connection, but men, what they look for first, we have to take into account what they're saying. We have to take into account what they look at short term and what they look at if they want a wife. And we've just been discussing all, like, what angle he was coming at, and we've got a lot of videos where he speaks to a particular woman, a particular caller, and he calls her average, and actually she called herself average. And as I said to you, when I first started watching him, I was quite angry, angry and a bit confused as to why he conducted himself that way.
I think he can come across as a bit blunt, but he's not trying to sugarcoat it. These people have taken the time to phone in on his show, his lives or what have you, and then it's almost like they don't want to then hear the advice that he is given. If you are approaching someone for the advice and you already know how they conduct, the advice that they give to people, the way that they conduct themselves, then you should be prepared to hear the advice. Be prepared to hear the information that you might not want to hear, but will help you to be a bit more realistic in your approach. In, not to say you have to lower your bar or anything like that, but it's almost setting yourself up for failure to think that you're going to sort of have something, as you said, and you don't quite match that. There's nothing wrong with getting with someone who you want to grow with or who you want to build with, but having this sort of, you want this A-lister celebrity, or you want this guy that already has this big house and all these cars, when, like you said, sometimes you are bringing a lot of baggage to that relationship. We're not saying that if you have children, you can't find love again. We're not saying that if you yourself as a female are not a high earner, that you can't find a particular type of love. But you have to be realistic. We also have to tie in the fact of mental health. If you know it's an unrealistic expectation, you're kind of setting yourself up for a lot of emotional turmoil that you can't reach your own targets that you're setting for yourself.
And I honestly think that men have said to me regarding this particular person, like, I'm quite surprised that women have never heard this perspective. And I said, well, how? Because apart from my partner, who has spoken to me about this? What male in my life has said, do you know, actually, you know, you're a nice girl or whatever, but what men actually look for is this, this and this. What will make a man marry you is this, this and this. I'm not saying that everyone wants to get married. If you don't, you don't. But literally the women who phone his platform is because they're looking for something, and he's just saying to them, well, do you? And when they answer with the real true answers, when they're being open and honest, he's saying, well, this is what it looks like. If you look at things, we spoke about perspective in the other show. If you're only ever looking at something from your perspective, it's jaded, because you're not seeing it from the male's perspective. Like, why would someone who hasn't got children, who's, you know, of an age, has worked themselves up successfully, goes to the gym every day, works out all the time, want someone who can't be bothered, doesn't really care about themselves, has XYZ, you know, in their past, you know, has a high body count, you know, like, you have to look at the reality. And as he said, and what I came to understand, why I can say I can listen to him now without feeling completely knocked, is that it's the honest truth. And we don't always like to hear the honest truth, but it is what it is. We will never change the way men are as women, and men, we can't change us, but we can change if we want to be with them and work in conjunction with them and work together and have productivity and have successful relationships. We have to then listen and not ignore. And it doesn't sound nice at all, but then when I think, if growing up we had honest males in our lives to say, this is what it is, they wouldn't be going through the things they're going through now as men, thinking, is it worthwhile? Can I be bothered to commit? Can I be bothered to have children? Can I be bothered to, you know, get a mortgage and put someone else's name? Can I be bothered? You know, and that's really a sad state of affairs. And then we were kind of talking to how we got to this point. We did an Insta Live about, like, the angry woman, or not easy to, what was it called? Not easy to anger. And we were talking about this, and on there I did said, I don't know a lot of women who do this. I know a lot of fairly, I don't know the word independent, but they can rely on themselves, and that can be a good thing, as long as you know when you want to then come with someone, there's got to be compromise. There's got to be lots of compromise.
And a lot of men, one of the things that men also want is, yes, they want a go-getter woman, as you said, independence, or what they bring to the table. But what a lot of men want is a woman who is still in touch with her femininity. They want a woman to be a woman. They want that feminine side. They want that sort of caregiver kind of element of them, not just, I'm about my money, I'm about my ambition, I'm about this, I'm about that. They're not looking for that match. They're not looking for an alpha and an alpha.
No, and as much as we say, like, oh, we don't dress for men, you know, we dress to make ourselves feel good, we don't, you know, we just, you know, we are dressing for other women, and if you want to dress for other women, that's fine. If you are literally dressing for yourself, that's fine. But don't be surprised then when you don't get the kind of attention you might want. If you want to be by yourself, if you want to attract women, then do you. And this is an opinion, but now I've come to realize that a lot of men are really feel strongly about the voice they've not been able to have. Then when certain men now are coming out and saying these things, we're like, oh my gosh, like, how dare they? But actually it is like, why should they put up with us watching Real Housewives of ABC, you know,
or
D,
Lovin', whatever,
you know,
Yeah.
all these programs, you know, that we see these women brawling with each other, you know, spitting out at each other. They want, and don't have that much to give. When you think you're supposed to be supporting your spouse, you're supposed to be supporting your partner, your family members.
There's a lack of emotional intelligence going on, because you can have intelligence, you can have wealth, you can be a high earner or a high value man or woman. But if you are lacking integrity or emotional intelligence, it's still not going to work. And that's another thing I think is another aspect or another perspective then. There are men who are high earners, there are women who are high earners. But if you're not in touch with your emotional intelligence, the romance side, the emotional side is not really going to work. A lot of the time they have put that to the back burner to get to where they have got. But when it comes back down to the sort of the very core of what a relationship is or needs, you need to be able to be in tune with your partner. You need to be able to not just sort of mystically read signs. We've spoken about that before. You have to express what you want. But if you've got someone who doesn't understand emotions, you're kind of just you're going to end up with someone that's got money but no compassion, no empathy, no emotions.
Definitely. And I think what a massive eye-opener was for me was the fact that a lot of the males who I've been listening to have pointed out, like, they really they're not that bothered by your qualification and how much you earn. And I always thought that was something you brought to the table. If you could hold your own, if you were financially stable, that was really important. But literally when men list their needs and wants of what they look for a partner, like, your qualification, your papers, your doctorate, your master's is like literally comes way down the line. And I honestly thought that the more you did and built yourself up was the more appealing you would be to the opposite sex.
And I would agree with that. I would have thought that too, that they will obviously, they do want someone with some level of intelligence, but
you need to be able to have conversation and consciousness,
basically.
I think you need to be able to know you have morals, you have ethics, you have emotional intelligence, you have knowledge of where you are, of geography, you know, all the things that you would need to a certain degree. But you don't need to keep, you know, proving yourself, jumping through these hoops and earning six figures yourself. Like, men don't necessarily need that, because in a man's mind, in a man's build-up, makeup, it is to provide. So if you take that away, that's already their role just diminished. So I think that it has been so good for me, I think, as a female, to watch things from a male perspective. And I know some of you, our viewers, have said that it's good we hear, speaking as experienced and older women, should I say. You know,
you look young,
should I say older women? Not that I want to say, but just that we speak from our perspective, and actually we speak from the males we know, that things they've told us, and we can bring forth their opinion. But we don't have a male. Always we say this and can't express it enough. We don't have a male sitting here. So I think it's been really vital for me, for you, to do a bit more research, and actually, instead of just speaking on a male perspective, actually do our research, find out what they're saying on a ground level. Whether or not we think expectations are too much or too little, it's what they think, it's what they feel. And I've not met a male who has disagreed with that one particular video that went viral. You know, I feel very sorry for that woman now that video has gone viral. But I've watched, I would say, at least 35 of sessions with him. I've also watched a lady called Danica Marie on YouTube. Shout out to Kevin Samuels and Danica Marie. She literally echoes what Kevin's saying, but from a female perspective, and she's no nonsense speaking too. And you know, as much as maybe you out there might not agree with it, we felt like it was important to address this.
Yes.
To actually, we're watching all these programs from coming out of Atlanta actually as well, with this very masculine, dominant female breadwinner. And although we celebrated all these things for years, we have to be very careful, because we have to ask ourselves, who are we doing it for?
Yes.
Who are we doing it for?
Yes.
Who are you doing it for? What is it that you really want and desire?
Whose validation are you seeking? Why do you need their validation? Why are you seeking it in the first place? You should be doing a lot of the things for yourself, to elevate yourself, self-growth and all of these things to get you to that point, or to be in a union with the person you choose to be in a union with. But do you need validation? Do you need somebody else, an external body? Do you need likes, loves and all the rest of it to actually allow yourself, you, to know where you are and that you are reaching your targets, you are hitting your ambitions or your goals? Why do you then need an external person to give you enough sort of attention to make you feel like, yeah, if you don't get attention, aren't you still doing those things?
You do need to do the light work. You really do need to do it, because you don't want to bring headache to your partner. Like literally, if you are trying to be someone's peace, you have to be at peace with yourself.